It is Sadani Ong Kaar Kaur Khalsa, my apologies. We've seen her here at every conference for the last few years, and a lot of us look forward to her talk. Jinukati Guru di Meher hui hai. She is, the Guru's Kirpa has been bestowed on her in many forms. As you will see, she converted to Sikhi at the age of 30. She graduated from Rice University in Asian Studies with a concentration in English literature. This led to a scholarship in China where she spent some time exploring issues of translation with sacred texts. She worked as a journalist and marketer until she met Harbhajan Singh Khalsa, Yogi Ji. Under his guidance, she began translating the writings of the Sikh Gurus into English. If I may say so, a number of us who sit in the audience wish that one day something would happen to us and we'd have the capability to do it. Well, let me tell you, she has already published poetic translations of Japji Sahib, Anand Sahib, and Sukhmani Sahib. And today she is going to talk about Sukhmani Sahib, the jewel of peace. She works at sikhnet.com. Welcome to you.
It was a great blessing in my life that the Guru gave me the opportunity to spend 8 years meditating upon and doing a poetic interpretation of Guru Arjan Dev Ji's Sukhmani Sahib. I wanted to begin today by sharing some of my experiences while doing this translation. I cannot speak to what other translators go through, but for me, translating Gurbani has been a profoundly challenging and emotionally intimate act. The reality is that I don't translate Gurbani, Gurbani translates me, and by that I mean, in order to find an English rendition of a line of Gurmukhi, there is a need to go deep into the original with whatever linguistic and meditative capacity is at my disposal to get it, to get what the Guru is saying. While working on Sukhmani Sahib, I became acutely aware of how much this particular Bani speaks to the issue of non-duality. Guru Arjan Dev Ji challenges us on multiple levels to get our egos out of the way and to see the one in absolutely everything. Now, while this may sound mystically very correct and proper, actually in the emotional truth of life, such a perspective is brutally challenging. And while working on Sukhmani Sahib, it was not unusual for me to go into various healing crises in relation to different passages. In other words, what the Guru said provoked me so intensely that I would cry or be angry for days, struggling to accept the meaning. I remember one evening while watching public television, there was a show about women from Eastern Europe being kidnapped and forced into prostitution. And I started screaming and crying at the television. Really? This is you. This is you. Slowly over time, what I came to understand is that the Guru stands with us through all our trials and tribulations. And that yes, the light of the divine still exists within every player, no matter how painful the game. Even now, when I go back and reread this translation, I watch my ego get provoked by the simple truth Guru Arjan Dev Ji is trying to share. It's all one. So do not get caught in the play of illusion. Just remember and merge with the one. Today, I wanted to share some passages from this particular translation and offer some reflections about what those passages mean to me in light of the Guru's guidance about non-duality. The first passage I would like to reflect upon is the third Ashtapadi's 6th verse. Sagala Purak me Puraka Pradhan, Sad Sang Jakha Mithe Agaman, Apasakho Jo Jane Nicha, So Ganiya Sabate Ducha, Jakha Man Hoye Sagaliki Rena, Hara Hara Nam, Tinakatakash China, Mana Apune Te Bura Hana, He Kasagalar Sisit Sajana, Sukh Duk Janasam Drisiteta, Nan Kapapuna Nahi Lepa. Among all people, that person is the greatest leader who erases his pride in the company of those who live by purity, grace, and discipline. Consider that person the highest of all, who knows within himself what his weaknesses are. The mind that becomes the dust beneath everyone's feet Such a mind constantly perceives the divine reality in every heart. When the darkest, most difficult thoughts within the mind get destroyed, then a person shall look upon the entire universe as a beloved friend. Happiness and sorrow become equal in his eyes. Then Nanak, neither vice nor virtue can affect him. One of the most powerful concepts offered within this passage is that the person who is the highest has created an awareness within himself or herself of their weaknesses, of the worst parts of themselves. And when the darkness of the mind gets destroyed, then the sight of everyone is beloved. This speaks to something very powerful in the human condition. Siri Singh Sahib Bhai Sahib Harbhajan Singh Khalsa Yogi Ji used to say, everyone knows your weaknesses except you. In other words, humans are uncomfortable seeing the worst aspects of ourselves. We have a natural defense mechanism to block the sight of our own stuff, and that defense mechanism comes from a sense of shame. To see our worst creates so much shame inside that we have to block, hide, or run away from it in order to protect ourselves. But when we refuse to own our shadow, that is actually what creates the dualistic vision. We project our shadow out onto other people. The difficulties in our lives, which come from our own darkness and weaknesses, we blame others for the effect. And it is that process of projecting the shadow out there that blocks us from experiencing the one in everything. So in this verse, Guru Arjan Dev Ji puts the problem of duality where it belongs, squarely on our own shoulders. That we have a responsibility to work through the shame and see our own weaknesses, to confront and destroy our own darkness, because when we do that, the truth can reveal itself. When everything becomes beloved, it means everything we see as part of the dance of the one, which means that the polarity of happiness and sadness, vice and virtue, no longer create a reaction within us. I feel happy, I see you. I feel sad, I see you. Someone acts virtuously, I see you. Someone acts in vice, I see you. I see the beloved in all. Another challenge to the mind to perceive non-duality is anger. And Guru Arjan Dev Ji addresses this poison of anger in the 5th Ashtapadi. In the first verse of the 5th Ashtapadi, Guru Arjan Dev Ji writes, Das pasit le bhache pave, ek basit karen bekhot gavave. Ek bhi na de dasit pi hirale, thom mora ho kaha kare, jise thakor ko nahi chara. After receiving 10 objects, his confidence gets destroyed because of the one object he did not receive. If the one was not given and the other 10 were taken away as well, then what would this idiot have to say? No remedy exists outside the master. And then in the 5th Ashtapadi, 2nd verse, Aganat Sanku Apani De Ras, Khat Peet Parite Anad Ulas, Apani Uman Kachabukur Sahu Le, Agyani Manarosa Kare, Apani Partit Apahi Kova, Bahur Usakha Visvasana Hova. You yourself, sorry. Ji ki basat dise aage rakhe, prabhu ki agya mane mate. Osite shogun kare nahal, nanak sahib sada gaya. You yourself are the banker whose wealth cannot be measured, and you bestow your capital upon us. Eating and drinking, we use it for our pleasure. Then, banker, from the deposit you made, you take something back, causing the ignorant mind to become angry. Because of that anger, we lose your trust, and then our own confidence disappears. One of the illusions we have in life is that our own ego, our own will, is responsible for gain and loss, for what we have and don't have, for what comes and goes. And when we lose something, when something gets taken away, the mind, which cannot recognize that the one is responsible for what we receive in life, reacts with anger. Anger creates a block in the flow of communication between the finite and infinity. And when the trust breaks between the finite and infinity through that anger, we lose our own confidence. Why? At the level of the G, the level of the inner being, it knows that life comes and goes by the hand of the one. But anger destroys our sensitivity to see and feel the one. And so ultimately, when we become angry for losing something, we make ourselves highly insecure. We lose the sense of that touch of the one, and it is only that touch that can give us a true sense of security throughout life. It is only through that sight and touch of the One that a person can find true security. This insight is offered at the end of the second verse. Whatever your capital, place it before the One. Trust and accept the order of the Creator on your forehead. By doing so, you shall flourish 4 times over. O Nanak, the Master's kindness extends forever. So the key lesson for the mind is to surrender, accept, trust whatever the One does, to not fight or argue or manipulate, but to live in acceptance. And that spirit of acceptance, that what comes and goes is controlled by a loving consciousness much greater than our ego, that surrender ultimately creates prosperity. This Ashtapadi completes with an amazing affirmation that the kindness of the Creator never ends. So it encourages the mind to trust and accept the order and see what unfolds in life as part of a plan created by a master who is kind, not vengeful. Sukhmani Sahib is filled with verses that go into ecstasy about the one and all. And so the last verse I would like to examine today is one such passage. Sokhyo bisare ji kalana pane, Sokhyo bisare ji kya jane, Sokhyo bisare jin sab kich diya, Sokhyo bisare ji agan nahi rakhe, Guru prasad ko birla lakhe, Sokhyo bisare ji dakhte khade, Janam janam ka thotha gane, Guru pore tate ehi pujaya, Prab apana nanak janatiyaya. Why forget the One who does not deny anyone's efforts? Why forget the One who knows what you have done? Why forget the One who gives absolutely everything? Why forget the One who is the life of every creature? Why forget the One who protects you in the fire? Through the gift of the sound of wisdom, some rare person realizes this. Why forget the One who draws the poison from you, who breaks through the cycle of rebirth? The perfect teacher gives me the understanding of the essence of truth. Servant Nanak meditates on the Creator alone. The title of this Vani is Sukhmani. This means that the mind is directed to peace. This passage speaks very simply and directly to the underlying instructions of non-duality. Mind, focus on the Creator. Do not focus on the creation. Watch the creation, sure. Enjoy the creation, absolutely. But do not let your mind get lost in that creation. Stay focused on the One who has staged the show. When the mind can anchor itself to the One, then it can create ease and relaxation, because why should the ego hustle and hassle when there is a doer? Let the doer do, and let you not forget. This is the ultimate formula to attain peace. Sukhmani Sahib is the most outrageously positive spiritual exposition. That was another shock that I had to metabolize while translating. There are so many amazing, incredible, positive statements about the possibilities of human life and the human condition. And this set of incredibly positive affirmations challenges the mind to see life in the true spirit of Chirdi Kala. It made me realize what a test Guru Arjan Dev Ji had to go through at the end of his life. That he channeled this beautiful prayer, asking the human race to see the One in everything, to view the One as the doer of everything. And then, while sitting on the hot plate, Guru Arjan Dev Ji had to prove this to himself. He had to sit there and take the torture. The pure, raw, heart torture that was going on around him, day after day, after day, after day, and just keep seeing the One in all of it. No matter what the personal cost to him, to smile through the suffering and only see the One. When it comes to the issue of non-duality, there are many extreme yogic practices to get the mind to enter into that point of view. Sukhmani Sahib opens a portal for the everyday person to enter into the practice of non-duality simply through the normal ups and downs, trials and tribulations of everyday life. That seeing the One in the good times and the bad times, in the pleasure and the pain, in the love and the heartbreak, gives us the ability to go through life with equanimity. And in a world filled with terrifying, difficult, challenging situations, grace and equanimity is what the mind needs most of all. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa. Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you so much for that talk. Questions, please send them forward. Let me start off with the first one. You talked about confronting darkness. How does one confront your own darkness? What is the process? What do I do now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, what I would offer as a perspective is that you have to let the darkness arise first. And that's the hardest part, because we want to pretend it's not there, or we want to control it, or we don't want it to show through. So the first thing is to let the darkness arise. And then trust that there's a process that you can go through with the Creator and the Sangit to face it. So, I mean, I want to get really gritty here, if that's okay. You know, in a human society, there's all kinds of pain that happens, and we carry ancestral pain with us into our future generations. There's the pain of being raped, there's the pain of murder, there's the pain of incest, all these things, there's the pain of suicide, and all these things vibrate through the whole community. And they leave marks on all of us. And those marks then create reaction and anger within us. And so there has to be a space at the Buddha's feet to allow those emotions to come forward, and through meditation or therapy or Sangha support or whatever you need to give a chance for those things to transform. Because it's in the transformation of the darkness where you can own it, and then where it doesn't rule you anymore, that you can liberate yourself from it. But when we're suppressing it, the darkness rules us. When we're in it and we don't see any hope, the darkness rules us. But when we're in it and we can be in Sangit and with support and tools and help and meditation and kirtan and the Guru, then we have a chance for the darkness to release.
Well said. Part of the same question. Is it not when you recited Sokyo Bisre, in other words, we have abandoned, or why do we abandon? Doesn't that result in darkness? And then how do we rejoin?
The abandonment is definitely, I mean, it's a chicken and egg question, you know. Do you abandon the Creator and the darkness arises, or does the darkness arise and you get caught off from the view of the Creator? You know, I think that both things are true. I loved the talk with Anuras and Hadaras. You know, I thought that was really powerful, that, you know, we can be in the company of the holy and chanting, and the divine virtues are flowing through, and then all it takes is one situation to drag us into that Anuras and to pull us away. So the question was, can you repeat it again?
Sokyo Bisre was some of the as you read the lines,
Yeah.
Where we say, how do we abandon? Why do we abandon? The question is, how do we rejoin? How do we now get joined again?
I mean, the way what Guru Arjan Dev Ji says is that the way is acceptance, and I think that that's what's so hard, is that the darkness takes hold because we don't want to accept things, and to surrender into acceptance of whatever is. Like Guru Arjan Dev Ji gives the example at the end of his life. He spent his whole life manifesting the Adi Granth, helping birth the Adi Granth, and he had total and profound acceptance of his life ending by being tortured on the hot plate. So how do we get into the spirit of acceptance of the darkness, acceptance of the wounds, acceptance of the difficulties? Because there's some moment that the Guru is trying to tell us that it's in acceptance that transformation happens. It's in the resistance when the mind is fighting and denying. It's in the resistance that we get lost in the darkness, but it's in the acceptance that we can transform.
Thank you. Another question. Talk a little bit about Bani, how to control anger with Gurbani.
How do you control anger with Gurbani?
What are all the tough questions?
Well, I'll be very honest with you. You know, I'm going through my own journey with these things, so I think the Guru's, you know, how do we control anger with Gurbani? It's a really good question. again, can you control anger, or is it about transforming anger? You know, these are the things that I'm questioning within myself. Anger is there, you know, it's a poison, it comes up. And when it does, it rips through your entire system. It's about transforming it, because the anger has a source. You know, the anger comes from a thought. The anger comes from a missed expectation, or a failed desire, or a sense of shame, or the anger has a root thought. And in the process of meditating, or in the process of counseling, or in the process of dialogue, or in the process of whatever, if you can get to the root of the anger and shift the thought, shift the vibration of the thought, the anger can release. But to control anger, I don't think is possible. You know, when you suppress anger, it just kind of goes through your system in a different way. If you express anger, it goes through your system in a different way. But if you can get to the root of the anger and shift the thought, then you transform the anger. And the Guru's Bani gives us sort of a holding ground to be able to do that.
Another one. Vaheguru has created us, and also He's created the hooks that pull us to worldly pleasures.
Yes.
Getting pulled to these is therefore Vaheguru's will. Please comment.
Yeah, there's a beautiful line in Japji, right? Grace and karma are both thy gifts. I mean, it's very true. The hooks are there, and we get pulled in, and it's kind of like we're here to learn certain lessons in life. And some lessons we can learn through meditation and service and purification, and some lessons we learn through the karma of it. And Guru Nanak says both those things are your gifts to us.
Here's a hopefully easier one. Why is Sukhmani Sahib popular in women's circles? And why are men not invited?
Yeah, I can't speak to that.
I don't want to comment on this one. So, talk a little bit about the process by which you went through the translation. What did you do on a daily basis? How did it happen?
Well, it took 8 years to do this translation. And I would say they were some of the hardest years of my life on a personal level. And the process went like this. I spent 4 years looking up every word of Gurbani, doing a really, really rough translation, trying to understand what lines I didn't understand, going back and doing research, talking to scholars, looking at other translations to try and understand what I didn't understand. And I probably have notebooks like this thick from those 4 years. That was the first 4 years. The second 4 years were dedicated to the poetic rendition. So there's a process of researching and understanding and putting it down on paper and getting it. And then there's the process of transcreation, of trying to find beautiful ways in English to express it that are not bound by the dictionary. Because the dictionary is not the Guru. The Guru is the Guru. And the Guru has the right to express itself however it chooses. So then it was 4 years of revision and 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 revision until the poetry was the best that could come through me, not necessarily the best that could ever exist, but the best that could come through me. And I have another stack of binders this tall from the 4 years of the poetic process. And it happened, you know, a friend of mine said to me, because you know, these days I'm also dealing with a lot of my own shadow work. It was funny for me that I spent 8 years with Sukhmani. So much tragedy was going on around me, but Sukhmani kept me alive. And then as soon as I published Sukhmani, it was like I dropped into some postpartum depression. And all the swirling that had been going on for so long with all the demons have just come right into the door. And now I have to deal with them.
Time for the next translation, right? Translation.
Well, we have to get there. So there was a point to that. What was my point?
Sorry.
And I don't remember my point. Okay.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow of thought, but somebody just sent the question over. I really want to see these books. How can I get them?
They're on Amazon.com or Ancient Healing Ways.
Do you have copies outside too?
I don't.
Okay. Or can you share your email and then?
Yeah, I can share. At Ong Kaur with 2 A's at seeknet.com.
Great. With that, we really thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Okay.
On the last question. Jo bole so